Now let's just get a bit deeper into IaC and IaCs. So there are different approaches of it. I think there's declarative versus imperative. Can you please talk about those and get into details of those?
Yeah, so I think so both imperative or declarative, I think these are just mechanisms to implement IaC, right? So IaC is a broader and larger concept, right? Mm-hmm. And there are different ways to achieve IaC, right? Mm-hmm. The most popular one, or the ones that were initially started, all of these, right? So for example, Terraform, right? So these things work in a declarative way. Why they work in a declarative way? Because it's easier to maintain state, and state maintenance is a very critical aspect of IaC. So the infrastructure that you actually deploy, you have to have a source of truth of what is actually deployed on the substrate. That is what state is called. And it's easier to manage that state if you use a declarative approach to declare your resources, right? Having said that, there are cons and pros for these things, right? Con being for the declarative approach that the usual imperative programming control loops or conditional statements that do if, this, that are a bit tricky and hard in the declarative model, right? And that's somewhere where software developers or programmers get taken aback because they can't do the normal stuff that they're used to doing in their own daily imperative languages, right? So there are a bunch of tools that essentially exist that create abstractions around these declarative mechanisms to provide an imperative layer, right? So for example, Pulumi is one tool that creates this imperative abstraction on top of their declarative model. So Pulumi is self-declarative, but they create an imperative layer on the top, which allows users to do control loops or for loops to essentially create infrastructure, which would have been harder if it was just a declarative approach, right? So there are other things, for example, Cloud Development Kit, Amazon CDK, right? That is essentially another imperative thing, which renders CFDs, which are declarative, right? And now there is CDK TF, which essentially is Cloud Development Kit for Terraform, which again is imperative abstraction, but behind the scenes renders declarative Terraform templates. So it's more about the concept being IaC and choosing a technology that fits best according to your needs, right? I personally am a proponent of Terraform. I have worked with it for a long time, and it's a very vibrant community. It has lots of cool templates already done. But again, there are lots of tools, right? So you can evaluate different pros and cons, but ultimately IaC is a larger concept than.